I'm on Blackburn Point, the north section of Siesta Key before you go the bridge to the island. And I want to show you the destruction of Siesta Key. I've got about 100 photos to show on this video to give you some perspective of the current situation. Now, Siesta Key is a barrier island in the Gulf of Mexico on the central west coast of Florida. We're right between Sarasota and Venice. Now, Sarasota got hit with a hurricane, Category 3 hurricane, just a few days ago. And I have another video that talks about the destruction on Siesta Key. But I want to show you what Siesta Key looks like, because Siesta Key is very different than Siesta Key. It's a very different vibe in that it's a one-lane roadway that goes right through the island. Siesta Key is 8 miles in length and about a half a mile in width at its widest point. Some homes are beach to bay, where they have a residence on the bay and a home guest house on the beach, and really a unique area. And as such, it's a very wealthy island. We have many celebrities that live here, including Hulk Hogan and Stephen King. And yet it's not a pretentious area. It's not a gated area. It's very public, and it's very natural and very beautiful, a beautiful, beautiful island. So why is it not safe to be on Siesta Key right now? Well, part of the road is actually washed out. There's barricades preventing people from going on that section. Now, you can't get on the island unless you are a resident, but even in that regard, it's not necessarily safe, because some of the roads are missing and some of them are just impassable by the abundance of sand. Now, another problematic situation is the power lines. There are power lines that are sagging and making it dangerous. It's different than its neighboring islands. North of the island, you have Siesta Key, which is world known to be one of the best beaches in the United States. It gets a lot of attention, a lot of traffic, and that's where the Cat 3 hurricane came to this location just a few days ago. Now Siesta Key got hurt. Now, it's unique. When the hurricane came on shore, it was at one point a Category 5 hurricane, and then we had this cold front that came at just the right time, because that cold front dampened the storm down to a Cat 3. Now, that was a huge blessing, because a Cat 5 would have pretty much wiped us off the map, and we got hit by a Cat 3. Now, Cat 3 hurricane to our area still causes a lot of damage, but I actually feel very fortunate that we got only a Cat 3, and that if you're in a well-built home, you're in a safe location. If you're not, and if you're away from the shore, you're probably okay. This storm did not do as much damage as it did to other areas that were not hit by this Category 3. Now, what would be examples of that? As awkward as it is, even though that on the West Coast we got hit with this hurricane, the East Coast saw a lot more damage in some regards because of all the tornadoes from the overall impact of the storm. Now, a tornado will wipe your house out, and the problem with a tornado is, like a hurricane, we know the hurricanes are coming, but tornadoes, you have very limited knowledge. But even in the eye of this hurricane, you have threats of tornadoes. So I feel like we were fortunate, because when I look at the destruction all over the state of Florida, and you look at what's happened to Siesta Key, you look at the roadways that have been washed out, you look at the sand abundance, the houses had a lot of wind, you do see some damage. Some homes were completely destroyed from this hurricane. Others actually just got damaged, and the biggest problem being flooding. 2 weeks ago, we had another hurricane that came through here, but it did not make a direct impact. Hurricane Helene actually just went up the coast of Florida, but by doing that, it created such a storm surge that the flooding became problematic. That happened. We had a lot of flooding. Residents were taking the items out of their property so they wouldn't have mold issues. And then we get notice that we're going to get hit directly by Hurricane Milton. It looked to be a 5, came down to a 3 because of the cold weather. And when it finally did hit us, all the anticipation of how bad this hurricane could be, from my perspective, was not as bad as it could have been, because the flooding, the surge, was not as bad as the previous hurricane. And the surge is what causes so much problems. When we have an unexpected amount of so much water coming into the area, this brought in so much sand. It changed the topography of the island. In fact, in some areas, you can see that it looks very different. And what's unique, that when I walk the island, even the water looks different. Even the beach looks different. There's an area where it's very bright blue and very, very low, and then there's areas where it's very deep. And the areas where it's very deep have a different smell to it. It smells, you smell a lot of dead fish right now on this island. You can just, wherever you go, and why do you smell fish? Well, understand, when all this water comes into the island and then it recedes, the fish are still here and they're rotting all the surrounding areas. So there's just this sense of dead marine life around us, and the waterway looks very different. You'll see a bright blue side and you'll also see a dark side. And the way Casey Key is created, you have the north section, which is where I'm at before you go to the bridge. Go over the bridge, there's housing to the right, housing to the left, and then you go down the island, and there's an area where there's a stretch of roadway that's directly on the beach, then there's a roadway that's directly on the bay, and then it goes into an area that's more of a little commercial space, not much of it, where there's some hotels, some beachfront Airbnb type situations. Then you have the public beach. And then from the public beach, you have an entrance to get off the island, known as the South Bridge here. And then when you continue on to Casey Key, you actually run into the North Jetty to Venice Island. This area got hit pretty hard. In fact, the other side of the jetty, you're on Venice Island. And that particular area, there was a concession stand that got destroyed, I would call it, turned over, just washed away. The parking lot is really not there anymore. All the asphalt is just crumbled away. And that part of the island is also protected from not entering that space because it's not safe there. The North Jetty is, of course, closed because of Casey Key is closed. And then the South Jetty is also closed because of damage. Now, it looks very different when you walk that area. There is no water on the island right now. There's no power that I'm aware of. And the residents in here, I spoke with one of them, was just concerned that they would hope they would start letting people in because they need help. Their homes, some still have water in their property. As of yesterday, there was a house that still had 6 inches of water throughout the house. And he has no access to come back on and off the island to help repair his home. And the issue is when you have water in your home for too long, if you don't get that water out in this humid climate of Florida, you're going to get mold, and mold's a big issue, and mold will become toxic. So you have residents that are looking for help, but enforcement is doing what they can. I mean, without impassable roads, with down power lines, it's a matter of priority of where things are. Now, the mainland of Casey Key, the biggest problem right now is just 2 things. Number one, gas. It's hard to find gas right now. There are some lines that are taking an hour to get gas. And then the other issue, it's not safe to drive around here because of all the broken streetlights. And in fact, we were just in a situation where we're going down 41 and the other roadway sees their light's not on, our light's on. So typically when you have the lights are out, you have to treat that as a 4-way stop. Well, we're treating it like a roadway, the other cars are treating it like a 4-way stop, and then drivers get impatient, they pull out, and we're starting to see some accidents that are unnecessary, and it's challenging in that regard. So, if you don't need to be out, you don't want to be out, especially when the roads are not safe and the beaches are closed. Now, Siesta Key just opened yesterday, and I was on Siesta Key and I went through the damage. But when I talk about, I mentioned the idea that we are lucky because when the hurricane did hit us directly, even though that had an impact to our area, there are areas that are much worse. And ironically, some of those areas are on the East Coast where the tornadoes did so much damage without a lot of notice. We didn't have that problem with a lot of tornadoes here as the hurricane went right over us. Now, there's a lot of damage. You can see when you go up 41, you can see signs down. But overall, this location, if I look at the severity of impact of hurricane and what it did to other areas, if I could say 10 would be a catastrophic situation, 1 would be minor situation. I would call Casey Key about a 4 right now. There are homes that are destroyed, the roadways are down, but it's fixable. It will come back, and it's a nice area. And same for Siesta Key. I mean, there's a lot of damage right now, damage that we haven't seen in a long time. It's fixable, but it gets down to the idea on a barrier island, you have to think hurricane, you have to think hurricane windows, you have to think elevation, because it's not necessarily the wind that's going to become the problem, it's going to be the flooding that comes into the area that causes so much trouble. So ideally, is this going to change a lot of things? It is. There's a lot of people that are saying, I'm leaving Florida, I'm done, I don't want to live here anymore. And there's this belief that after a hurricane, real estate prices start to decline. And my experience has been just the opposite, because I've gone through many hurricanes, and I actually see that after a hurricane, real estate prices actually start going up. And why do they go up? Well, because there's a shortage of housing. You have a lot of people that have been displaced from their homes, and the inventory of housing has gone way down, and yet you still have a demand for people that need housing. So homes that are on the market right now, there's more buyers than there are sellers. There's going to be a lot of sellers, but these are sellers that have homes that need a lot of repair, right? And some of them will price them to sell them as is. But if you're looking for a home that's in good condition, that you can move right in and it's on the market, the supply of inventory will go down. So with that, I predict prices are going to temporarily go up for a while, and it's going to take a while to heal from all this damage. But we are in an area that people want to live, and hurricanes are a challenge. I've been here 40 years. I'm used to this. This is my normal. So I'm not afraid of hurricanes. I just know that you have to be smart about how you handle it, and you need to be in a safe location when a hurricane comes. So I hope I've been helpful to you. This is Casey Key. It's got a lot of damage, but you know, it will recover, it will heal, and we'll get back to normal. If you rode out this hurricane with me in our area, I hope you and your family are safe, and I wish you well.